Hey, I'm Dina.
I'm Nikki.
And we're your hosts for CBD Magcast. CBD Magcast is devoted to the legalization of cannabis
and its impact in your community.
Cannabis Concierge, the expert and discreet service of cannabis procurement for the individual or retailer.
These buds are for you.
CBD Magcast Civics brings you
Business Bragging, all about commerce in the cannabis industry.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Dina.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic because today we're here having a chance to interview Sandi with Rez Rid. And I'm going to let Sandi explain who he is and what he does.
Again, my name is Sandi Babbit, and about 2.5 years ago, I, getting reintroduced back into the cannabis industry, wanted to see if I could come up with a product to sell in it. Wasn't interested in getting into the actual cannabis product, wanted more of an accessory. And so this particular product, Rez Rid, that we have is a cleaning towel. It's a 10-inch by 12-inch towel. Has 9 water-based surfactants in it for cleaning, plus lanolin and aloe, so it keeps some moisture in the individual's hands as they're cleaning their devices. And I discovered that a company that I represented in another business that I have as a manufacturer's rep, that they had a product that worked very well for cleaning up, especially anyone that was doing dabbing or anybody that was fooling with concentrates. Even down to the pin type configurations, although you don't have the residue buildup that you would on someone that's dabbing, you still have a buildup on the actual terminals for charging the battery back. So it's very nice to be able to clean those and get a good charge back in your battery rather than going back and it not being charged. So we started investigating it with the manufacturer out of Cleveland, a federal process. It took them about a year to come up with a product that they labeled Rez Rid, which was kind of appropriate to the industry. And we, before the product was put out for production, we wanted to clear through the cannabis board here in Washington State whether this product would be allowed into the industry as an accessory product. Several emails swapped back and forth, and the final resolution was yes, you will be able to offer this product as a paraphernalia type item in the industry. So we released for production the product. We brought in about 50,000 units to start going out into the industry to sell. That started up about July of 2017. So it took about a year to bring the product to market. And at that time, we worked for about 3 months, and then were advised that the state of Washington Cannabis Board was reevaluating or reinterpreting the guideline, and that our type of product, not just us singly, but our type of product and other types of items that weren't directly cannabis related to the actual product or smoking devices, that we would not be able to put them into the Rec 21 cannabis stores. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in a holding pattern. We've done some trade shows down in Oregon. We've got some good response out of the Oregon market since they don't have the restrictions that we have here. But still, it's tough to travel 150 miles away from when you're sitting right in the heart of the state in the Northwest that was the first to bring cannabis into the industry. So we're in a holding pattern.
We met last year in that time when you first came out with your product. I was a bud tender. I loved it. I had a couple of packets from you at a couple of different times, and I gave them all away except for one. And I had mentioned after it had been dried for a year, I used it, finished it up, and it worked again. All I had to do was get it wet. I couldn't get over it. It was fantastic.
It's not just for the cannabis industry. It can be used basically to clean anything that you have, whether it be permanent marker, grease, dirt, whatever. So yeah, it's a very versatile product. But again, it was an effort to bring something into the cannabis industry that after doing research before we approached federal process to put the product together, we bought several different competitive products and didn't see anything out there that was of the quality that ours was.
What we had talked about on the phone before, you had mentioned the extensive data you put together to go into the stores and the loss of market that was significant to you. That really astounded me.
Yes. There's a couple of data services that are available in Washington State, and then from there you can take that out in Excel spreadsheets and you can manipulate the data any way you want. And what we did is we looked at, as a part of that data, it wasn't just, hey, store A is the number 1 store in the state this month, maybe it's number 2 next month. They actually would list the most popular items sold out of that store for that month, what they bought it for, what their markup was before tax, after tax. And so we took that number and no great accounting here. We just said, okay, so here's what the item is selling for. Here's what I paid for it. Here's the taxes that I have to pay to the state, to the sales tax. So now you've got a net number. Now you start plugging in overhead that the shops have. We plugged in roughly a 30% of cost as overhead. Never really had any of the shops that disagreed with us on that. Take the B&O tax out. Not a big tax, but it's still a couple of points that they've got to give up in their margin. And then you take out the federal income tax, which a lot of the I think shops may not have realized. You got taxes on the top side, you got taxes on the bottom side, and so it turned out as effectively a product that they might be buying for $10 or $11, selling for a little over $30. They'll wind up making less than $1 on it after you deduct all of those expenses. We approached them and said, if you just promoted one Rez Rid towel with each sale, and we can increase your margin by 68 cents. In many cases, when they're below $1, we were doubling their profit margin for just selling one Rez Rid item. And we approached the shops as, do it like McDonald's does it, upsell. Hey, look at this. Yeah, I see you using waxes. I see you using cartridges. Here's a great cleaning towel. Do a little promotion. We even have given some consideration to doing promotions for the bud tenders. If the bud tender at the store that sells the most in the month, maybe gets a $50 gift card, or maybe we buy some product out of the store if that's something legal. Within the guidelines, it's permissible in the shop since they're so stiffly regulated. We don't want to infringe upon any violation there, but we definitely would like to help promote the product.
Yeah, create incentive. That's the way to do it. And then when it works for itself, it sells itself after that.
Right.
Definitely. Did you find a market in like the paraphernalia stores at all? Anything like that?
Well, my last discussion with a gentleman from the Cannabis Board, November of last year, his comment was, well, you can still sell it in the glassware shops. And I said, well, you cut our potential market by about 90%. Because, again, with the numbers that we get from Top Shelf, we're able to do a backwards calculation and determine how many transactions there are in a month. I told him I could take you to the shopping center in Bremerton, where there's a glassware shop that's 3 doors down from the cannabis shop. And if 50 people walk into the cannabis shop, maybe 5 walk into the glassware shop. So
right. There's no secret that cannabis stores are trying their best to be a one-stop shop where they can be, so I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, don't get me wrong. I do sincerely, even from a past business that I own, do a shop that opens up, and it's a new industry because I was part of an industry in South Louisiana that was a new industry coming in. You really don't have a good feeling for what your costs are. So when you're either over-regulated, like we were in that business, or if you're restricted on what you can and can't sell in your shops, that has a great effect upon whether that shop is going to be profitable or not.
Well, not only that, they can't take the responsibility of possibly getting a nick on their license because they sold a product that now is under a different interpretation across the board.
Sure.
So then a moratorium comes. We just don't sell anything, it's easier. Or that, and that potential is dangerous as well.
So what did they rule specifically, or do you know what they reinterpreted specifically that kind of kicked you out?
It basically and simply put to me was, if it's not cannabis, if it's not glassware to smoke it, if it's not a paper to roll it, you can't sell it in the shop. I was told they can't even sell cigarette lighters in the shops anymore. Now look, I'm going back a year ago was the last time I visited that situation, so maybe some things have changed, but as I've walked in and out of the shops, I don't see a whole lot of anything but those 3, glassware, papers, product.
And that's my point about them not wanting to take any chances either, because the detriment to their livelihood for it. And we all understand that, but it just doesn't make sense because it's stifling.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing that could happen to this industry is shops start failing because they're restricted on whether they can be profitable or not. That, I'm not showing any bias there. Any business has to be profitable. The doors don't open. This is not charity.
Yeah.
People are trying to make a living. They're trying to feed their families off of this. Look how many people have been employed now in this industry that would not be on possibly the unemployment rolls or moving out of state because they couldn't find work in the state. So.
And there's every level of work in this industry. It's like if you're somebody who just wants to water plants all day, or if you're somebody who wants to run the business, there's room for you from A to Z. And again, we're running into a real weird uphill battle against a behavior that doesn't make sense. People are in charge of the cannabis industry that don't have any care for it or understanding, or I don't know what it is that they are so tight-fisted about it when they don't have much of an interest, desire, or want for it. That's just the thing I feel from everybody I talk to. You can't get somebody to make a consistent decision. You have to be worried about somebody's day, if they're having a good or bad day, if they're your LCB agent, somebody's interpretation just because they want to have some authority, whatever it is, or trying to do the best but don't know what they're doing. All of it just fails, epically fails for this industry.
Yeah, the legislature and interpretation in cannabis is such a windy and new road, but it's really detrimental, this flip-flopping pattern that we're getting into, it seems.
Well, and I guess we could what I would like to say about it all and why we do what we're doing with CBD Madcast, having specifically a perilous production and a business bragging, is to say it's a business. We're trying to keep our doors open. We are employing people. We're trying to get advertisements. We're trying to put money back in the community by paying our loans and our cars and our budgets for food and all of these things, take our kids to ballet or football or whatever. But we're putting so much, $1 billion a year in taxes, $1 billion a year in taxes to make all of those things better and available.
Yeah. I so much appreciate your model, Sandi, or this idea of your business being able to bring in revenue, your product being able to bring in revenue for you, but also for the businesses that you're going into.
Sure.
I think that's huge. I manage a store in Tacoma, Emerald Leaves, and we had some of the Rez Rid samples certainly in there. And I mean, almost everybody who had a nasty battery, I gave them a Rez Rid wipe. That was I would have sold 1,000 of them.
And what I love is that you do have a product now that you got stifled here in Washington. You can go to Oregon, California, or any other industry in Washington until they get a chance to work that out.
Sounds like it could be in a grocery store even potentially.
Oh, well, once we were forbidden to go into the cannabis markets, we started looking at other channels to hit. Yeah. Convenience stores were certainly a channel. Coming from also that industry and the other related business, the problem with Washington and the convenience stores is that there are no, other than a Jackson's Food Store or an AMP and Marco, there's no chain of stores. Most of the convenience stores in Washington are owned by individuals that have 1 or 2 stores. Maybe they might have 3 or 4. To hit that cannabis market, the biggest problem we had going into the cannabis shops was getting to the person that had the authority to buy.
That's true. Everybody does have that trouble.
I understand that there's just dozens of people that stumble through the front doors every day with something that they're trying to promote to the shops. Where when I was putting together my business model for this, I expected maybe 2, possibly 3 visits as a closeout. It was 5 and 6 visits before we would get to see the right person. And then there would be a verbal commitment at that point in time, come back a week later, you go back a week later where you've been out of sight, out of mind, that person may be out that day. It became very labor intensive to build that base, and that would be the same thing with convenience. So if they're a great model, it could be right on the side of the York peppermint patties with our gravity feed box.
Right.
Pay $1 for a York, pay $2 for a Rez Rid, and you've got something to eat after you consume.
Yep, we're excited for you and your product, and we're sad for everything that happened. And I want to thank you so much for interviewing with us and letting us tell your story. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Heck yeah, thank you so much.
CBD Madcast and Cannabis Concierge are a division of Confidential Monkey Enterprises.
Visit us at www.CannabisBeyondDope.com.